welcome to the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world show made for the fans by a fan. I am your host, as always, Richard Tiemann. This is the award-winning Fan Show. I'd like to thank you all for joining me this Wednesday evening. It promises to be a good one. It is one of our last couple of Battlebots specials. I know, very bittersweet, because on the sweet side, we've got another Battlebot special. I will have a brand new guest joining me for the first time ever tonight, Marc of Team ICEWAVE, who was in the most recent episode, and we'll talk all about that. Plus, a look ahead at the big season finale. The tournament concludes with its final four. One to rule them all. One for the giant nut. But that's the sweet part, right? We're going to crown a new champion, and things are going to be awesome. The bitter part is that then we play the waiting game. You know, Season 4, we want Season 4. Will we get Season 4? I would certainly hope so. I would certainly think so. I feel Season 3 has been the best season really ever. I mean, look, I don't want to say don't at me, because it is my opinion, and it may feel like it's a biased opinion because I was there for the tapings of Season 3. This is the most hands-on involved that I've been with Battlebots, but let's be real here. You go back to the Comedy Central days, and it is a sport, but to be on Comedy Central, it seems gimmicky, right? Like, what was that show that was on right after Monday Night Raw when it was on TNN? It was that foreign competition, kind of like, I almost want to relate it to, one of the Nickelodeon kids games, where you have the obstacle course, right? And the ridiculous stuff, and they'd have English voiceovers for everything. But extreme rules, extreme champions, something like that. I'll figure it out by the end of the show. But that's the feel that you got. It may have been like a legitimate competition, but to have a home on Comedy Central and be taken seriously, that's going to be a little harder to do. They had some great fights there. I remember that's when I became a Battlebots fan, was its Comedy Central days. In fact, one day I was at Shopko with my mom, saw not an official Battlebots computer game, but one where you built a combat robot and, would fight all the way to the championship. And I played the hell out of that game. I loved it. Then it had its hiatus. Then ABC revived it, and then I got hit up to do weekly segments during Season 2. All the while, we want Season 3. Then Discovery and Science said, hey, we're probably a good fit for you. And I believe that they have been. So, some of the fights, there may have been fights that were better than some that we saw this season and other seasons. But I think as a whole, you really have to respect what this season set out to accomplish and what it has accomplished. So congratulations to Battlebots and the powers that be. Like I mentioned yesterday, Greg Munson will return to the show. We had him on before the season started airing. And now we're going to have him on to kind of reflect and take in everything and let us know where he feels Battlebots is and its future. So that'll be good next week. That'll be kind of our Battlebots finale. But the Battlebots finale is Friday night, and we are down to the final four. They're re-airing last week's episode tonight on the Science Channel. And for those of you that are keeping up, if you rely on the Science Channel to legitimately give you your Battlebots update and you avoid spoilers for 5 days, I don't know how you do that, but props to you. We are down to the final four, and sorry, spoiler alert, hit the mute button if you need to. Those final four are Minotaur, Lockjaw, Whiplash, and Bite Force. So it's either going to be, you've got 50-50 here, literally. You've got 50% chance that says somebody who's never hoisted the giant nut above their head will get the chance to do so. this season, or someone is going to add to their collection. Bite Force and Lockjaw, some of the most decorated bots in the mix. It's crazy. I love it. I really do. One of the youngest and up-and-comers, I believe the future of the sport, Matthew Vasquez. Whiplash is in the mix. And then the man who's been chasing the giant nut for 15 years, the man who represents an entire country, Marco Team Rio Bots, the man behind Minotaur, fighting out of Brazil. They should really... I wish Farouk would add in, like, fighting out of in their country. I think he does sometimes when his writers come up with a way to tie in where they're from. But it would be fun, if they did representing blah, 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 or whatever country or state. And then could add a little something to it. So that's Friday. Place your bets, pick your winners. We've got the last of the fan show video content from the pit. That's right. All those segments that you guys have been loving and liking. The last of those are being published this week. It's, again, very bittersweet time. I had a blast. I loved it. Wouldn't trade any of it for the world. But all great things must come to an end, and we'll hope that we get a chance to do it all again next year. So Mark will join me. We're going to talk IceWave and Battlebots. We've got a ButtFumble Award winner for week 4. A new name to add to the list, and it's a good one. And I thought about starting a list for the opposite reason, almost like I say that the list is like the naughty list. Well, what about the nice list? I don't know. There's a lot of nice to go around, but these guys definitely deserve to be recognized for their epic moment from this last week. And with that, let's go ahead and get into the headlines, shall we? And the headlines are that Kevin Owens and Elias are legends now in the world of wrestling, because with a single phrase and then being able to play off that, 10 minutes of infamy is what it turned into in Seattle when Elias decided to bring up an especially sore subject. As a Washington native, as somebody from this area, somebody who lives in this area, I could have told you, probably should pick your battles better, but it worked for what it was, and it was glorious. Kevin Owens and Elias out there doing a segment the week leading into Super Showdown in Melbourne, Australia. And they will be facing Bobby Lashley and John Cena, odd team. But Elias said that didn't make any sense. Having a basketball team in Seattle doesn't make any sense either. Of course, referring to the Supersonics, who are now the Oklahoma City Thunder. But wow, the crowd booed for 10 solid minutes. I have friends who were in that crowd saying it was every bit that they played it out to be on television. Like, you can't really get the full reaction or noise level of things. Like when I watch Battlebots, I'm like, God, that was so much louder when I was there, because it only gets so loud on your TV, right? Crank it up to 11, that's about it. But he said it was producer Rob. He was there. He's like, it was the loudest crowd he's probably ever heard. It was one of the loudest crowds that his friend who goes to a lot of these events has ever heard. And it was that loud for about 10 solid minutes. In fact, I have a tweet that is going viral right now. If you want to go to @FanShowOfficial on Twitter, it's pinned to my profile right now. It has been retweeted 88 times and liked 252 times. And it was the screenshots that I took of the replay of Raw on Hulu with the closed captioning. And it's amazing, because all it shows here is 4 shots of Elias and Kevin Owens. First one says booze. So he makes the comment, it doesn't make any sense. Like, Seattle having a basketball team doesn't make any sense. Booze. The next one is, it says booing continues, because the crowd was still booing. Like, we're talking like it's not just a pop reaction. Like, they're still booing and they're getting louder. Third one says crowd still booing, and Elias has just kind of accepted that, okay, so this is how this is going to go. And then the fourth and final one, Kevin Owens goes to try to steer things in the right direction, and it says angrier booing. These are subtitles that I have never seen before, and they are probably the single greatest series of subtitles in the history of television. So props to Elias and Kevin Owens. If I had a good the list, which I may very well make just because of them, but either way, they would be the only names on it because they are that awesome in my mind. It might have been a sore spot, sensitive subject, but man, was it worth it. I mean, they are overnight celebrities. They are legends in that moment. I love them for it. So props to Kevin Owens and Elias. Don't forget that these headlines are brought to you by Dynamite Enterprises, where if you wanted to make shirts commemorating such an occasion, saying angry or booing, or, you know, it doesn't make any sense or something like that from the area to cash in on this moment, on this hype train right now, Ethan at Dynamite Enterprises can get it done for you. And don't forget, it is October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so we do want to make sure that you guys support the fight against breast cancer. There will probably be some fan show breast cancer exclusive merch. We'll be donating about 10 to 15% to one of the breast cancer charities, more than likely Susan G. Komen. But yes, you can customize your world through Ethan at Dynamite Enterprises. And we also have Indy's Barbershop. Don't forget to go and get a quality haircut and hot towel shave. 7-Eleven North Monroe Street. It's just a great place to be. I need to get my stuff trimmed up, but I'm waiting to see what I'm going to be for Halloween, so I need to know if my hair needs to be cut a certain way. But they can do that at Indy's Barbershop, so go and hit them up. Other headlines are that it's Wednesday, and things have pretty much slowed down. There wasn't really much in the world of the NFL. And this Saturday, we've got the Super Showdown in Melbourne, Australia. We also have the Conor McGregor and Khabib, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, fight, which a lot of people have been anxiously awaiting. Conor McGregor's highly anticipated return to the octagon after his controversial actions led to his suspension, which involved Khabib. So now we get to see this fight. UFC is turning more and more into WWE every day. You don't know what's real, what's fake. And I think the fact that you question that is why it's losing part of its fan base, because they watch UFC to get away from WWE, where you don't have to wonder if it's real or fake. You just assume it's all real. But this has some very familiar symptoms, especially with how closely of a relationship Vince McMahon and Dana White have had over the last several years, including the back and forth trading of Brock Lesnar. So I don't blame the fans for being a bit over this. I think this fight will determine a lot of the future of the sport, to be entirely honest. So that's happening this weekend. We got Mark on. Eastern plays Southern Utah Saturday out at the Inferno. I'll be at that game. We've got Bass Tournament down in Tri-Cities that I've been talking with Bobby Brown about. Friday, the Battlebots season finale, the Final Four to the championship. We will crown a new one. So that's really your headlines. And let's go ahead then and let's crown a new winner of the Week 4 ButtFumble Award. And your nominees for Week 4 are Denver's hook and ladder, air quotes, Beathard's late turnover, or Winston's return at halftime. Now, Denver's hook and ladder was the epic failed play that they tried to have to win the game against the Chiefs. Beathard's late turnover cost them the game against the Chargers when they had 4 minutes left to score just a field goal. And then, of course, Winston's return, Fitzmagic runs out. Cue Jameis Winston to save the day, and he did not. So you nominated, you voted. Your winner for the Week 4 ButtFumble Award is Jameis Winston. That's right, you have served your suspension, and although Fitzmagic has run its course in Tampa Bay, you could not save the day for the Buccaneers. Instead, you got stomped by the Bears, so good luck next week, James Winston. I certainly hope things go better for you. Until then, congratulations on your Week 4 ButtFumble Award. You earned it. And we've got another name to add to the list of fan show. This one, I'm not sure if this has already made the list, but you can certainly be added twice. It may have been added last year. I'll have to go back and look at last year's list. But this list, this item on this list, I think a lot will agree with. Now, look, I said yesterday that there's very much two sides to a player holding out, right? And when it comes to, you know, what that player is holding out for, a lot of times it's for more money, but there is a reason behind it. Most of the time it's because they feel undervalued. But sometimes, though, there is the legitimate reason that a player is holding out because they're looking to their future and they know they can't play football forever. So, Seattle Seahawks, specifically your front office, in the wake of what happened to poor Earl Thomas, do you know what happens when you can't just grant your guy's wishes? The guy who's been one of the centerpieces, one of the faces of your entire franchise for the last decade. If it's not Russell Wilson, it was definitely Earl Thomas. And to treat him the way that they did and not grant him a trade, a release, or a restructured contract, and for his season now to come to an abrupt end, and he knows the future looks bleak. Do you know what happens when you can't just man up and pay the guy to, or at least, you know, honor his request to go elsewhere? Do you know what happens when you're just douchebags about the whole thing? Do ya? Do ya?
You just made the list!
So congratulations, Seattle Seahawks and Seahawks front office. You are this week's addition to the list of Fan Show. You definitely earn that. And don't forget, as far as earning things, if you feel like you can earn money with your betting skills, go to mybookie.ag or just at mybookie, and they are going to help you get paid if you win. Because the beauty of mybookie, and I get asked all the time, fantasy advice, where to take your betting action. I tell them, when it comes to betting, MyBookie, because they let you bet on a number of things. MyBookie is slammed with new bettors and wants to give you and everyone the best service possible. So if you're willing to deposit after 7 p.m. Eastern Time, they'll give you an additional $25 free play on deposits over $100. Not to mention the fact that they're already going to match you dollar for dollar on your initial deposit when you use promo code FAN. That's F-A-N. Now, you visit MyBookie online today. That's MYBOOKIE. And don't forget to use the promo code FAN, F-A-N, when creating your account to claim up to $1,000 in free play. And if you hold out till 7 p.m. Eastern Time and enter promo code FAN25, that's FAN25, you'll get the additional $25 in free play added onto it. It's up to you. I mean, really, if you guys feel that confident in your over-unders, your in-game betting, your fantasy points scored, I mean, they've got it all. There's so many ways that you can win. Why not take advantage of that and cash in using MyBookie? So with MyBookie, it's easy. Repeat after me. You play, you win, you get paid. Or I guess I should say, if you're repeating after me, I play, I win, I get paid. So MyBookie, visit them online, use promo code FAN or FAN25 if it's after 7 p.m. Eastern Time. They're going to match your initial deposit up to $1,000, and if it's after 7 p.m. and you add the 25, they're going to add $25 of their own money. So remember, it's good to be a listener of the Fan Show if you visit MyBookie today. So we will be right back after this with Marc of ICEWAVE to talk some Battlebots. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Fan Show, your home for all things football and nonsense. My special guest tonight, Farouk. Farouk, welcome.
He's no expert, but here's the thing. Football and nonsense is what he brings. Sports talk with a twist. It's the Fan Show!
Do you know him as Kevin from the League? It is none other than very funny Steve Ranazzisi.
99% of the population doesn't know who I am, but the 1% do. They yell and scream inappropriate things at me in public.
Kyle Ray. Kyle, welcome.
And I was like, wow, I think we just saw the whole Super Bowl, Phyllis. It's like that scene in The Simpsons, like, why rent the movie? I just saw the best part.
Funny man Brad Williams.
Yeah, I'm here. No, I flew in just for your podcast. I've heard about this podcast. I've heard it's fantastic.
It's Mac and Farva, but they are my special guests tonight. Steve Lemmy, Kevin Heffernan.
I was in Mexico for 10 weeks in a Speedo. Like, that was me going to work. I was putting on a Speedo.
Farva is the most fun to play, and it was a blast to do that again, to do Farva again.
So then the makeup artist had to put Vaseline on your body, right? Yeah. And then put the powdered sugar on top of that. Is your name really Richard Siemens?
Listen live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night on Spreaker.com or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Joining me with just one episode left of BattleBots, but a few fights left anyway. He is one of the coldest men in the BattleBots. He is the man behind ICEWAVE. Marc DeVidts, how you doing, Marc?
I'm good, Richard. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You guys are a tough rundown, but then again, so is everybody. Once the season finishes taping, it's like you all scatter and get back to real life. You don't even have time to enjoy seeing yourselves on TV.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough. We try to get together when we're on TV, and we have parties around the area to watch it, but it's pretty tough with real life going on.
Yeah, I could only imagine. I was only down there for the couple days for their quote-unquote media days. I would have loved to have been down there for the whole taping and got some really good content from you guys, but I made the best of what I could with what I had, and I got to say it's been so entertaining to see this play out with the new fight card format. We're now into the final stretch, what it's all been building to, and I didn't think it was going to be so quick, only 3 episodes, but we do get our season finale this Friday. And for those listening, if somehow you haven't seen what happened on Friday on Discovery, you're waiting for Science Channel tonight, cover your ears or hit pause because we're about to talk about it. You guys, I gotta say, it was a really entertaining fight. Now, you may not feel that way because you guys ended up losing to Rotator, but man, that fight was something. Did it surprise you?
Yeah, I mean, at first I didn't realize that was going to happen, and it wasn't until we sort of started getting in line and looking at the configuration that Rotator had, because he kind of changed things up at the last minute, that it sort of got into the back of my mind, like, oh, this could be bad. And so the main goal, of course, as usual with IceWave, is just keep the engine going and keep that blade going so that nobody can get to the top part. And for whatever reason, we still don't know, but the engine died, and it's really unfortunate because we'll never find out. It's all just completely in pieces and destroyed now. But I'm not disappointed in our run in the season. I thought we did great. I thought we put on a really good show for everybody. Super happy. It's kind of nice. I mean, selfish, it's kind of nice that there's only 1 episode left because we made it till the second to last episode. But other than that, it's been a great season for us, and I'm really, really stoked. Compared to last season, it's been way better.
Yeah, you guys had one of the more popular bots as far as there was a few features done on it with the cold opens. Kenny Florian talking about the mechanics behind it, which there are literal mechanics. It's like a Hemi engine with that thing. But when I was down there and saw the upset with Tombstone and Bombshell, I thought you guys had to be the heavy favorite just because of how dominant your performances were. Now, of course, I talked on a few episodes with judges and other competitors about that controversial loss you had to Scorpios. I said, I don't agree with that one, but hey, I'm not the judge, and I had Derek Young on, and he was talking about what he kind of sees when he's filling out his card. But, moving forward, I was like, I don't know if there's a bot out there that can go toe-to-toe with you guys on your best day, especially just with how dominant you've been. And of course, if you get with Bronco, you can't self-right, but we've seen that even that doesn't always mean that it's an automatic win. So for you guys, was there a particular matchup that you were dreading going into the tournament once the seeding was set?
Oh, once the seeding was set, honestly, we didn't spend too much time thinking about which robots we could go. It's really the type of robot more than the exact robot, and it's all about the attachments they add. So the thing that Rotator added, the plow, the angled plow on the front, was really bad for us. And anybody could have done that, and we wouldn't have liked that. But I mean, I don't blame anybody for doing that. That's exactly what you need to do against a robot like IceWave. So we didn't spend too much time thinking about it because we had so many other problems going on with our own bot in the pits and trying to get engines, repaired and just all kind of stuff. I put out a blog post a couple of days ago when we did our Reddit AMA talking all about the different engine problems that we had and cracking engine housings and servos and all kind of just crazy stuff that was going on that totally distracted us. And that seems to be our biggest flaw. I think it's probably most teams' biggest flaw is that, they get distracted by the the things that go wrong, and they don't have time to really preempt any other things.
Yeah, and with you guys, there's a lot about your bot design that I'm a fan of. And it's because it's unique. It's why I'm a fan of Blacksmith. It's because it's a different bot, but it's an effective bot. With you guys, though, and a lot of people, I think, realize just how different your bot is in this last episode, was that your bot's movement and then the weapon are two completely separate things. The top part was pretty much all laid out there across the battle box, and your bot's still running around pushing and shoving. But there's so many bots that can't self-write, and there's only a few that you have to worry about that being the case when you go up against Sub-Zero, Bronco, maybe even Lucky. But I think a lot of you, the mentality is, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We're looking to end it early and not let it go to decision. Is that kind of the thought process for you behind IceWave's design and why it is the way that it is?
Yeah, of course. If we let that we've done a job, and the Scorpios fight was the first fight that went to a decision ever in the history of IceWave, back on ABC and Discovery. So that was a first for us. And going back to the decision, I kind of agree with the judges. It's hard to go for almost the full fight being pushed around and win. So I do agree with them. I will say, I know Derek Young really well, and he's a good friend, and but he's got probably a little bit of bias toward a gripping robot because he's built complete control in the past, and that's sort of the style of robot that he likes. So it's good that there's a vast group of judges that keep getting swapped in and out, I think, to sort of compensate for that. But to your point about flipping over against Sub-Zero or Bronco or a Flipper, it's not necessarily always the case. I mean, if you look back at season 1 on ABC, when we fought Ghost Raptor, we flipped over. And that's not a robot that you would have expected us to flip over. It's not a robot that was actively trying to flip us over. They just happened to add a wedge onto the front of their robot. And that's ultimately what flipped us over. We hit that wedge. And over time, we learned so we flipped over in the first season. And then the second season, most people don't know this, but we actually built a self-righting mechanism for the second season. And we never actually got to use it because we had 2 fights and we never flipped over, and it was really unfortunate. And in the second season, we spent so much time working on that stupid self-righting mechanism that it ruined us in terms of, not getting enough sleep and not having enough time to really look at people who are fighting next and try to design the robot around that. And so we stripped all that out for the third season here, this most recent season, and tried to make it as simple as possible, going back to the basics. We also learned that it wasn't necessarily the wedge that flips us over. We hit ourselves when we hit wedges, and that's what flips us over. So if we can prevent our own blade from hitting ourselves, then we'll have a less likelihood of flipping over.
Yeah, and for you guys, clearly that's more in the back of your mind, like almost kind of like a pull the ripcord kind of reaction, because you guys are out there to dominate. You're out there, you're looking for the kill shot. That's what your bot is all about. In fact, I was informed by a few builders that you guys have, I don't want to say like exceptions to rules, but I said when we watch it on TV and it says robots activate and you see the bots move around, I was like, is that the extent of the movement you're allowed to do before the buzzer? Because you hear on the commentary all the time talking about getting the weapon up to speed. Well, if it was up to me, I just have my weapon warming up, getting ready when the thing hit. But you're the only one that's allowed to sit in idle before the thing starts. Was that something that you had to have like long conversations with the judges or the powers that be when it came to submitting your specific design?
No, actually, I haven't thought about that too much. It's kind of the way it's always been, and I don't know the exact wording of the rule, but I would assume it's something more like there can't be any, kinetic energy on the outside of your robot that's built up before the match starts. And I was at dinner with Pal Rucker from Duck and a couple other builders a couple days ago, and we were talking about this. Could you have a spinning bot that spins up a flywheel inside of the robot and then releases all that energy right when the match starts into an external spinner? And the general consensus was, yeah, I think that would be totally fine. So I don't think, first of all, we're not even building up any kinetic energy with the engine just idling. But, I think that would be totally legal to have a flywheel that's spinning up inside of your robot, for example.
Yeah, and I don't have a copy of the rules. I would love to have one because I find out so much through these interviews that I didn't know so much of the specifics, and I think it's great for your guys' world of competition and combat because without those, I mean, it could be chaos. And I talked at the top of the show how I was a fan of the Comedy Central days, which was looked on as kind of a gimmicky thing, but it's funny. You look at the evolution of this sport, and it seemed like back in the Comedy Central days, the more outrageous the bot, it's like the better it was because you had bots like Nightmare, Dissector, Tazbot that were just really these out there kind of bots. And I'm not saying that you guys are an outrageous design, but you're definitely one that's kind of outside the box, maybe even against the grain because there's so many vertical and horizontal spinners, but they're not done the way that you guys are. With as much sports as I cover, specifically football, they try to innovate and take the sport to the next level by coming up with something new, but in the end, it's the basics and back to what works that gets a team through each time. Do you think that there's still plenty of room for this sport to evolve as far as competition and bot design, or has it kind of hit its apex and now it's about the fine-tuning and making your bot different and special?
Well, I think it's both. With being back on TV, you get to see some newer designs coming out, like Huge and Tantrum is actually a really underrated robot, a very small little robot with a flipper on the top, but it's a very unique design with a leaf spring. So you're seeing a lot of innovation because people want to try to show off what they can do on TV, not just win. But then you get the hardcore builders who have been building the same robots for a really long time, and they're just perfecting and dialing in that design, like Bronco and Tombstone and us. Really, I mean, we haven't built a new robot in the past 3 seasons, but I think the Comedy Central days were kind of a double-edged sword too. You get 600 robots at that last event that they did. It was filmed on Treasure Island here in San Francisco, and 600 robots applied and got in. And to deal with that number of robots was insanity, but it really allowed the general population to build a robot and not even consider the idea of going up against a Tombstone or a Bronco right away. And that was kind of unique and cool. I do agree with the cheesiness factor of the Carmen Electra and all that stuff, but Comedy Central probably wasn't the right place for it ultimately. But and I think it's where we are now is a really good place. You certainly do get some of that that show factor where you got to put on a good show, but it's still ultimately a competition. I think the one thing that all the builders want the viewers to know is that what you see is mostly real. There's very little. I think I'm probably one of the only people that could say that there was very little real stuff going on there. There were a few things that were edited slightly differently, to maybe to show things in a different way. But ultimately, what you saw on the show was what happened in real life. So I think we want the builders to know that. I mean, the viewers to know that for sure.
Absolutely. And the last couple of questions I have here for you are about this last fight against Rotator. The first one is, you're watching this fight, and I could have been all by myself in this mindset, but I'm watching it all unfold and seeing pieces of your bot spread out all across the battle box. And all of a sudden, you see the clock. It's got 30 seconds left, and you're like, wow, unless there's a knockout, this thing's going to go to the decision. But then flashes of the Tombstone and Bombshell fight come into play because I'm thinking, oh my God, what if Rotator gets high-centered on one of the pieces that he chipped off of ICEWAVE and can't move? Looking back on it now, because I'm sure that kind of thing doesn't happen in the moment, but what would that have been like? I mean, we think controversy with the Duck and Bombshell Last Chance Royal Rumble, but I mean, if something like that had taken place, I don't know if there's a backup plan for the judges or for the production crew if that's the case.
Yeah, I don't know what I would have done either, because it would have been a lot of work to get it back together and fight another match after that. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's always going through your mind, and that's part of the reason why, like you said, the base of IceWave is completely separate from the engine. And that was something we learned early on, back in the day when I built it. In 2004, 2005, I had built an early version of IceWave. So I've been refining this design over time and realizing that the separate system is absolutely key, because of after we see what goes wrong with the engine so many times. But yeah, I mean, you ultimately just, all you can do at that point is, I made the conscious decision. Most people see it from two different sides, and they say, oh, Rotator was driving straight into us. And I feel like, from my perspective, I made that conscious decision to do what I had to do. And there was nothing left, right? There was nothing left for me to do once our engine died, but to just sort of take it on the nose and be as aggressive as possible with what we have left. And ultimately, that I knew that was going to result in our complete total destruction, because that engine cover is not meant for taking anything. So it was inevitable once I made that decision in my mind, and that all just happened within a 10-second period, basically.
Now, in your mind, because I know that they go over the rules and everything with you guys as each season starts, and I don't know if there's like a panel where you guys give your feedback or ask questions or give suggestions, but, the way that Tombstone was knocked out, in my mind, wasn't technically a knockout. I mean, it was his own, chain that did him in, but the wheels are still spinning. He just can't go anywhere. In your mind, looking at your fight, and if that would have happened maybe with Rotator, obviously it could have possibly been a win for you, and it may not have changed the judge's decision for the Tombstone and Bombshell fight. But should there be an asterisk next to what constitutes as a knockout, where maybe the fight is stopped, or they have to get I don't know. I just feel like it's asking for trouble from the fan base if we see that play out, and it's been flirted with a few times now.
Yeah, there's definitely the angry mob mentality once that happens. I don't know. There's a few different. I know there's, like, back in the day there was a thing called technical knockout versus a knockout. Not that it matters, just for the record, but I know there's other events besides Battlebots that are maybe not on the air. Like, there's one out here in San Francisco called Robo Games, where they have combat robots similar to Battlebots, and they have slightly different rules when it comes to what warrants an unstick. And so in Battlebots, the rules are, if both robots become stuck together at the same time and neither of them can move, then that warrants an unstick, and they'll pause the match. And usually that gets edited out on TV, but we actually had that happen to us against Vanquish, and nobody really knew about it because it wasn't on TV, but ultimately it would have ended up the same. But they separate the two robots, then they start the match over again. But in a case like this, Tombstone and Bombshell, where one robot is knocked out, or one robot is not moving and the other one still is, then it's tough, right? I mean, that's it's part of the game, unfortunately, at least at this competition.
Yeah, and luckily Ray was such a good sport about it, because he understood the risk going into it. When I talked to him afterwards, I don't think he foresaw that being a possibility, but he knew that his weapon being inactive was definitely something that could happen in that matchup. So rules are rules, and of course we'll have to wait until next season to see if they change. One thing that every fighter that I've talked to, every builder, has been a fan of is the new fight card format, having a guaranteed 4 fights, and there's a criteria, and you get seeded based on that. So having a regular season and a postseason. For you, though, I've got to ask the $1 million question is, looking back at your fight with Rotator, if that would have been fight number 1 for you, I mean, what do you do in that situation, knowing that you've got 3 more fights and you're still trying to get into a tournament bid?
Well, yeah, looking back on it, that would have, I mean, it obviously would have been horrible and would have really cut down on our ability to compete after that. But I mean, we did actually show up with two completely separate engines, and we could have probably rebuilt after this Rotator fight. It would have just been a lot of work. And I think, probably Ray was feeling the same thing when he said, yeah, it's just something that happens. But when you get to that point after you've spent, this was a 2-week period that we spent filming. And, after you go through 4 or 5 fights or 6 fights at that point, you're just going, I'm beat. I don't know how much more of this I can do and wake up every day and go and repair and I'm just calling vendors and ordering parts and just scrambling, and you got to go outside because the cell phones aren't working inside, and just like, it's complete chaos every day. And by the time the 2 weeks is up, you're kind of just like, whatever happens. And honestly, like, I never went in expecting to win. IceWave is sort of a glass cannon. Everybody knows that. And so, by that point we were like, good, we get to go home. But yeah, if it had happened early on, I think we would have probably, of course, we would have spent the time to get it back together, and we would have been more well equipped to do that early on rather than at that point.
All right, well, hey, Mark, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk IceWave and Battlebots. Like I said, you guys were one of my favorites going into the tournament to take the whole thing home, but it clearly shows that anything can happen in that battle box once, the robots activate. So congratulations on an otherwise fantastic season. I feel that you guys had nothing to hang your head about. It was one of the best performances, even the decision with Scorpios, but you guys are a force to be reckoned with, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you guys next season.
Awesome. We'll be back for sure. Thanks, Richard.
All right, you take care, Mark.
You too. Bye.
All right, once again, that was Marc DeVidts of IceWave. And man, I tell you, you look at these tournaments and the seeding and who the players are, and you pick your favorites. And you're thinking to yourself, like, you're going through these hypotheticals, like, well, so they're this matched up against this, and it's for any sport, the NFL playoffs. Once they've released the seeds and who gets a bye and who's a wild card, you're thinking there's no way that team beats that team, and then something happens, and then everything that you didn't think of is suddenly happening right before your very eyes, and you're like, wow, did not see that coming. I mean, that was IceWave and Rotator. I'm looking at this, I'm just like, man, Rotator better have some kind of crazy up his sleeve to go against IceWave. It really didn't look like anyone could best IceWave going into that tournament, especially on that side of the bracket. Now, maybe Bite Force, because Paul Ventimiglia is a bad man. And as we're seeing, young Matty Vasquez is a hell of a driver. But, once Ray was out, it's like, who's got the next up most powerful weapon? Minotaur and IceWave. And it's really what it came down to. So the fact that Rotator got in there and just wrecked his whole day, anything can happen in that Battlebots, folks. I mean, it is really something. I love it. I love this sport so much. And in that episode, I think, solidified my love for this sport. It's just with everything that was going on. The driving, the weapons, the unknown, the unexpected. Kenny Florian was absolutely right. It's the unknown that makes this sport great. So Battlebots season finale Friday. We've got your final four: Bite Force and Whiplash on the right side of the bracket, Lockjaw and Minotaur on the left side. I think no matter how you slice it, you're going to have a hell of a championship. If it's Lockjaw and Bite Force, well, you've got a battle of the vets. Who's going to take home another giant nut? If you've got Whiplash and Minotaur, who's going to get their first one? Will it be the young hotshot, or will it be the seasoned vet that's been chasing this thing for 15 years, that has a whole country at his back and on his shoulders? Brazil, Marco. If it's Marco and Paul, be a great match. If it's Lockjaw and Whiplash, another great match. Yeah, I don't think there's a bad matchup that you can have for the championship. It's a great Final Four. It's going to be an even greater championship once it's down to 2. But that all happens this Friday. Discovery Channel, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. You will not want to miss this. You will not want to wait until it re-airs on the Science Channel. Jump in. Get on that conversation. Seriously, jump in. It's a great time. I think that does it for everything here. We did the list. ButtFumble Award. I've not been feeling too well this week, but I'm glad I've been able to get through it. Yeah, I've got a bug. Some kind of cold going on. But one more time, big thank you, Marc DeVidts, for joining me tonight. It's always an honor and I use that, I don't use that word lightly, but when I do use it, I mean it. It is an absolute honor to get to know these bot builders, because I know that this isn't like the norm for them. It's really not, but I am fascinated by what goes into combat robot fighting, Battlebots. I love it, and I know a lot of you do too. You say it's a guilty pleasure, but come on, just be honest. You know it's fun. It really is. It's everything that you want from something without the stuff that you don't. So it's the reactions, it's the emotion, it's the unknown, unexpected, unpredictable, and it's none of the blood, the broken bones. And look, if that's your jam, nothing against you. It's just like, okay, October is clearly your month. There's a lot of gore that you can binge watch on Hulu or Huluween. But if you could do without it, which hopefully you can, Battlebots is the place for you. It really is. So check it out. Last chance, all right? We want Season 4. Let's get Season 4. Make it trending. Hashtag we want Season 4 at Battlebots. And that is going to do it for this Wednesday edition of the Fan Show. Tomorrow night we will close out another great week. First full week of October. In fact, every episode has been the 1st of October because we started October on a Monday. So we will do our Week 4 predictions, or Week 5 predictions. Jose Jefferson is going to join me because we've got some special stuff between us in the works. We're going to talk a little bit about that, give you a little sneak preview. He will be my next victim for Fan versus Fan Show. I am 1-2, looking to make it 2-2. 49ers will play the Arizona Cardinals, hoping to go 2-3. Eastern will play Southern Utah, hoping to go 5-1. Oh, wouldn't that be something? I hope. And then we got, we got Bass Tournament, Tri-Cities. We'll see if I can make that Sunday. Bobby Brown's going to be there. And All-Star Bass Fishing. So, until next time, tune in tomorrow night, which is the next time. Same Fan Show time, same Fan Show place. Follow us on all the social media. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/FanShowOfficial. Follow us on Twitter @FanShowOfficial. Give us a like on or a follow on Instagram and Snapchat. Both are The Fan Show. Your home base for all things football and nonsense is thefanshow.com. And then, of course, make sure you subscribe. If you can't listen live, subscribe. iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. So that's going to do it, folks. Till next time, best of luck to you and yours. Go Niners, and remember, of course, it's all fun and games until you butt fumble. Good night, folks.
Do you remember the time that Mark Sanchez ran into his own player's blood? That was funny sports.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love the Fan Show.